Hello and welcome to this series on the Godot game engine. My name is Samuel Asher Rivello. I am a Unity certified developer with over 20 years of game dev experience, and I love to play around with different game engines outside of Unity, and I'm going to be taking a deep look in this series on Godot, particularly using CSharp in Godot, but note that the languages are interoperable, so you can get add-ons, plugins, and different assets in one language and be able to use them in another. My mission is educating and entertaining with game technology, and I've created game titles, particularly in the Unity universe, for Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, some different Nintendo consoles, and lots of stuff for iOS, Android, mobile. My development experience spans lots of those titles, creating and shipping commercial games, as well as doing things in the education sector on behalf of universities, online training platforms, live courses, and things like that. So let's talk about the Godot engine. Throughout this video series, I'm going to introduce some different repos, resources, assets, articles, tips, and I'm going to have everything here on this link, so you can always check that out. I'll also link below. And in each video series, I'll be updating a little bit as we go. So if you watch this video or other videos in this series out of order, it's great, it's fine. You can always go to this and use this as the hub. So here in the web browser, we're taking a look at GodotEngine.org, and this is the home for finding out more about the community, the tool itself, what you can do with it. You can click around here and get used to the types of projects that you can do to help brainstorm and figure out if Godot's right for you. If you're already using Godot, then as you follow along with my series, I hope I can offer some new tips, particularly around using C# inside Godot. There's some learnings to be done there. So let's just start here and take a look at some of the features. So here we go over why Godot is right for you. Godot is free and open source, which is awesome. That means there's no cost to you to use it, and it comes with all of the features with that free price tier, as well as you can contribute to the open source project or fix bugs you encounter or add new features. It's a really cool way to build on top of the shoulders of giants here, but still be able to contribute and tweak things as you need them. As a Unity gaming expert, having now spent time inside the Godot engine creating complete games, I can see that it's definitely influenced by Unity. I feel there's a lot of things that are both not coincidentally in common with Unity, but I think inspired directly by it, which is cool and makes it at home to learn some Godot stuff. It's not a one-for-one. You definitely need to relearn a lot of concepts as you get into Godot. Things are done differently. I would say generally done in a simpler way. And sometimes that simplicity is a lack of power or perceived power. But one of the features that it was really interesting for me is in the center here, the ability to use the right language for the right job. So you can intermix any of the languages within a given project. It's not as simple as having one script just access the other like it's native in the same language. There's a bit more to it, and later in this series we'll take a look at interoperability between the languages. But being able to use my C# libraries, bringing them over from the Unity world, and being able to use a lot of that code directly, which is really helpful. Some of it required tweaking, most of it did not actually, which was awesome. And being able to lean on that strength. So I can create an entire project with C#. Now, GD script is the official language, I would say. So you're going to get the most integration between the editor and GD script. Based on my experience so far, C# is just a little bit behind that. There's a few things that you're not going to be able to do drag and drop as easily in the editor. But you can always code your way to get the same result, which is cool. Let's take a look at a showreel to see an example of what types of stuff can be made and shipped with the Godot engine. So we can see in the showreel there that Godot has a great way to approach 2D projects, 3D projects. They even show some tooling or apps in there as well for creating something that looks like a Photoshop on a tablet. So clearly Godot can create a lot of different look and feel in your games and is powerful. So to download Godot, we can follow the links here. And there's two different versions here, at least for me on Windows. It directs me to these two. There is one with .NET and without. Now, for most Godot developers beginning their first game dev journey, I think the first one, just the Godot engine, is appropriate. If you do want to take advantage of C# in some or all of your programming, then get the .NET version. It's the Godot engine plus a little bit more, and it's optional to use. So for me, as an interested person in C#, I would download that .NET version. Here we are with it downloaded, opening it up for the first time. This is the project manager. This is a place that sits outside of your specific project and allows you to change between projects. Also, you can create new projects here, so let's do that. So I'll create a new project. I can give it a name. I'll do it right here on my desktop. Create a folder. You can choose some different renderers. I always use Forward Plus for all the demo work that I do. It has some integration with Git if you want to do that. I can do my version control myself, so I'll go ahead and set that up. So here we are in the editor for a specific project. Now I'm going to give a bit of orientation as if you already know Unity. If you don't, that's cool. But up here is the scene. That's like the hierarchy in Unity. Here we have the file system. That's like the project window in Unity. Here in the center, this is a mixed area. It's something like the game view or the scene view in Unity. And then over here on the right, there's the inspector, which is just like the Unity inspector. So let's create a new scene and make a cube spin around just as a demo. I'm also going to do this in C#, so you can take a look at that. If you're interested in GD script, probably I'm not going to explore that too much in my series. So you can do the same types of stuff, but the language, of course, would look different. So we'll start by creating a new scene. We'll go up here to the scene, new scene. And on the left here, we can choose the root node. Now, something different about a Godot here compared to Unity. What Unity considers a scene is like a page of your app. And you can make a game with exactly one scene and put everything inside of it. Or you could break it up and have the menu scene, the game scene where you spend most of your time, and then maybe a game over scene to separate your app into different pages. Godot has that exact same paradigm for scene, plus a scene is also all of the concepts that Unity has around a prefab. And in fact, as I'm using Godot more and more, I feel like what they call scene here is really a prefab in most of the ways that you want to deal with it. But you can learn more about that. Just note that scene and prefab from a Unity world is just the scene concept here. So it's important in any given scene that you choose the root node. This is like the type of the scene. I'll continue to use the word scene here, but know that it feels a little weird for me because it's almost like a prefab in a lot of context. So the reason that you need to choose what type is because the scene identifies quite closely with its root type. For example, if I choose 3D here, then it takes on the characteristics of 3D. And if I choose to load this scene into another scene, there may or may not be some compatibility issues here depending on those root node types. So I'll choose a 3D scene since I plan to use a cube, and then it gives me this node 3D. The parallel from Unity is that when we typically think in Unity, a scene is divided up into different game objects, and each of those game objects has one or more components or mono behaviors in Unity. In Godot, we have something kind of similar. We have the scene here. Each of the scene is broken up into nodes. We have exactly one parent node. I can't have a sibling, let's say, to this node 3D, but I can add children. So to add children, you can right-click and choose Add Child Node or Control-A. So let's say as I'm building a scene here, I'm just going to hit Control-A, and then it lets me choose all these different built-in types. You can only have one custom script on a node, whereas in Unity, you can have multiple components on a game object. So you'll end up probably having more elements in your scene given that restriction, especially on a large complex project. So in my scene here, I'm going to want to put a light, I'm going to want to put a camera, and then the cube to be spun around, and then I'll do a little bit of custom scripting on top of that before we finish up. So when you're searching for something like a camera, you can just start typing in the search box. And for a lot of different node types, you'll see that there's a 3D and a 2D equivalent. Sometimes there's only one, but a lot of times for visual elements, there's two. So again, I'm going to go down the road of a 3D element. You can mix 2D and 3D, but let's just choose 3D here for simplicity. So I'll choose our 3D camera. Then I'm going to go up to the top node and I'm going to choose a light. So I will choose a directional light. And then we're going to need the cube itself. So again, I'll go up to the top here and I'll hit Control A. And it's a little bit weird to me when I was learning this. There aren't primitives. There's not right-click add cube like in Unity, but you have this CSG series of nodes. And you can do some really nice things here, like combining them, subtracting one from another, getting the union of them. There's these Boolean visual operations you can do on top of them. But you can think of the CSG library here that's included as the primitives, right? So let's just go ahead and create our CSG box. And we can see it there. Now, we've got just one view here, so I can go up to the top of the window and I can make two different viewports. And I like to do that so that I can go to one of them and choose Cinematic Preview here. Now, the one on the right is like what the camera sees, and the one on the left is like the typical scene view. So we get a bit of the game view, scene view paradigm from Unity here. And I'm just going to select our camera, and I'm going to back it up a little bit. I have snap on, so let me turn that there. So let me turn that off so I can smoothly move around. And then we got our light here, which you could change the angle for moving things around here. Again, I'm going to turn snap off so I can make a nice slightly offset rotation there. And then I will choose our cube, and let's go over here and explore our inspector window. Now, the inspector window looks quite different than Unity, but the concept's the same. Whatever I have selected in the scene view gives me more information about that one item, typically. Down here, we can go to the transform, and I'm going to do a little bit of rotation, just so it's clearly set at an angle here. And then when we want to build our scene, we can come up here to the top and we can hit play to run the project, or we can go and run the current scene. Now, something interesting in Unity is when you want to build the project, you have to declare which of the scenes from your project should go into the build, and then you give them an order. And when you do the build, the topmost one shows first, and the other ones are not immediately available. You have to do some custom coding to switch between them. So here, similar setup. You can have multiple scenes in a given project, but watch what happens when I click play for the very first time. It just wants to confirm that there's going to be one there's going to be one scene that this project recognizes as the main one. So I'll select this current one. It's going to invite me to give it a name. So I'll call it the spinning cube scene. And then it's going to run the project. So we're not spinning yet. It's just a little bit rotated, but there we can see. Now this is kind of like the Unity game view. Note that you have to do the build, so to speak, or you have to press the play button, and it pops into a new window. So we're used to this being inside one of the editor windows in Unity. This just floats around. Not a big deal. You can still do the same types of stuff that you would expect to do. We can manipulate the inspector view here and have it affect the game window here. We can manipulate the scene and have it, again, affect the game window. So pretty similar to Unity in that respect. Now let's put some custom coding on here. Let's actually have this spin around. So to add a script to anything, you notice when I'm clicking a node here, there's this little icon here that shows a piece of paper with a plus sign. Now I can hit that, and I'm going to be putting a script. I could put one script on each of these nodes if I wanted to. So a maximum of 4 scripts in this scene because I have 4 nodes. The other consideration is that when I put a custom script on a node, the class that I start coding has to extend whatever type that is. So for example, here I am sitting on a node 3D node, and that means that when I put a custom script on here, it's going to extend node 3D. In Unity, it's a bit different. You're not actually scripting nodes, you're scripting components that sit on game objects, and everything extends mono behavior in that case. Here in this case, you extend the particular node type you want. So just a different consideration there, but let's take a look. So here I'm going to choose, instead of GD script, I'm going to choose C#. If you only see GD script as a listed option here, that probably means when you chose to download, you downloaded the Godot Engine and not Godot Engine with .NET. You need to make sure you have that .NET. There's also, I'll put a link below, a little bit of setup you need to do for C#, especially if you want to open it up in a custom code editor. So I'll choose C#. I'll keep the name spinning cube. You can choose a template if you want. I'm going to be recoding everything from scratch, so it doesn't much matter, but I'll choose the node default, and then I'll hit create. And then down here, just in summary, the resources folder here is where all of our stuff goes: coding, visuals, textures, everything. It automatically gives you this icon, which is the Godot icon. That's included in every project you create from scratch, which I think is a little Trojan horse technique. So as you're learning, you can drag that out and use that image in your first scripting. I could have spun that around instead of this cube. And it also helps to promote their product as well. So I think it's a playful option to always have that in there. Other than that, your project is empty, and you could always delete that icon if you wanted to. Then I have the spinning cube C# file, which we're about to open up, and the spinning cube scene. This extension TSCN is scene. So I am going to double click our CS file. Now for me, I have my editor set up to use Rider, so you can do your coding in a separate text editor. You could also use Visual Studio Code, you could use Visual Studio, or you could use Godot's built-in editor. I think for any C# development, any serious C# development, you would choose an external tool to take advantage of all the richness that those have. I choose Rider. I know that's one of the popular options out there. So this is the default template that we're given. Two things to notice. I gave it a name, so that gets substituted in here. I chose the type, which is declared here. So just like in Unity, when you create a mono behavior subclass, it extends mono behavior. Here, you extend whatever node type you're sitting on. So if you're creating a 2D game, you would probably be extending node 2D for most of your beginning scripts at least. It's totally optional. You could choose a lot of other things, but that's just to mention. The onReady here, or the ready, is the equivalent of start in the Unity world. And down here, the process is the equivalent of the update in the Unity world. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to delete a little bit of the comments here. So we just have this. And let's just think from a Unity perspective, we would want to create a variable for how fast we should spin. And then in the update loop, we should spin it. Here, I'm going to do something very similar. And in Unity, you have the ability to do a serialized field so that if you want, you could tweak that speed in the inspector. So we'll do the equivalent here, which is in Godot is called export. So I'm creating the export. It can be public or private. For my needs, it can be private, it's fine. You can choose lots of different base types. I'm going to choose float, just like I would in Unity, and I'm going to call it speed. My particular naming convention is private variables, go underscore, and like underscore speed here. And you can take a look at the link below at my best practices for C#, designed around Unity, but you can bring those right into Godot. So here, let's see how we would spin our cube around. Oh, I'm also going to need a reference to the cube itself. So let me do that. Okay, now we want to do the spinning of the cube. All right, so let's do that now. We're going to get a reference to our CSG. We're going to rotate in the Y direction, as my comment says. I'm using GitHub Copilot, as I always do in this editor, and you'll see that it's automatically completing some stuff for me, but I'm going to do my best to type it manually by myself. Then we're going to use our speed, and we're going to multiply it by delta. Delta is a double, so I need to convert that to float for this operation. So just like in Unity, anytime you're doing programmatic animation, like spinning something around, you're given this time.delta time concept, and the The nature of that is outside the scope of this talk, but you're always invited to multiply your work by that for smooth results. So we're going to do speed times that delta, and let's go ahead back in and see how this works. So here I click on my node 3D we are. Over here on the right, I can see my spinning cubes assigned, but I don't quite see those properties there. Now, this is one moment where, because C# is a bit separate from the actual Godot tool, then you need to do an extra step here. So up here, there's build project, which is going to build your C# code, compile it, and make it available. Now that I've done that, we see here spinning cubes available. I have a speed, I'm going to set it to 3, and we have a ready to be assigned CG box 3D. So I can drag here from the scene over this way. I could also click on these dots here and clear, and click the assign this way, and it's going to browse the scene that I'm in and find compatible nodes. So there's two ways you can populate that. And now that it's populated, I'm going to run the scene. So I'll go up in here and hit play. And there we've got our spinning cube. Now, if I change the spinning speed from 3 to 1, there it's going to be spinning slower. So if I had more screen real estate here, I maybe put the editor next to the game running so that every time I tab over here, I don't lose the window, but it's both there. There's lots of different workflows you can do there. There may even be a way to have this show up inside the editor itself. I'm not sure. So just I wanted to reiterate there that occasionally as you're using C# you have to go up and do that build process. It's not for absolutely everything, but I'm still learning as I go, just getting the keyboard shortcuts down to be able to do that. So that's it for this video. We've taken a little bit of a look at what the Godot engine is, what are the types of projects you can make with it. I've downloaded it, specifically the .NET version, to talk about C# integration. We explored a little bit of the quirks of using C#. In general, I would say it's 99% feels very native and comfortable, but there are some things where we needed to do that extra little step of hitting build there. And you're gonna find some things like that, where there's a little 1% missing that you need to fill in the gaps. But everything you'd want to do in GDScript is also available here in C# for C# developers. And with that demo, we looked at some of the examples. We created a 3D scene, lights, camera, looked at the views a little bit, how we can replicate something we might be comfortable with if we're coming from Unity, as well as creating our first script, having it open up in the editor and be able to do some similar things that we would be used to, again, in Unity here. So thanks for hanging out and getting Godot Engine up and running and doing some simple stuff inside there, just talking about some of the comparisons available from the Unity perspective, as well as the C# language area as well. I'm available for remote contract hire. My focus is Unity dev and Unity game dev instruction, making instructional videos, online courses, live courses, etc., stuff like that. And I'm getting deeper into Godot and really enjoying how I'm playing with it. So I'd also love to find opportunities to do more stuff with the Godot engine. Thanks.